Welcome back, students. We're going to be talking about the people of the Americas now. A quick review of the people of the Americas so we can understand their place in the context of what we're talking about in world history now. We'll start with the Maya, who are considered an advanced civilization for a number of reasons. First, they're located in Mesoamerica, which is right here at the crossroads of Mexico, modern-day Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Central America, the Yucatan Peninsula. Here's a better image that shows you the Maya civilization. How do we know they're an advanced civilization? Because they show all of the hallmarks. They have an advanced writing system made up of glyphs. They have agriculture. They made pottery to collect and store that agriculture. They had advanced architecture, and they had entertainment. So all of these things tell us that they are an advanced civilization. They also kept a highly accurate calendar, so we know that they were advanced in math and astronomy, a 365-day calendar, and they were able to predict with this calendar the seasons, solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, and all kinds of astrological events. Mayan city-states were as advanced as Egyptian and Roman cities. So again, very much an advanced civilization. Next up, we look at the Aztec Empire. This is in modern-day Mexico. And we can see the extent of the Aztec Empire here with its capital city, Tenochtitlan, up here. So let's look at this writing. The place where the eagle screams, where he spreads his wings, the place where he feeds, where the fish jump, where the serpents coil up and hiss, this shall be Mexico, Tenochtitlan, and many things shall happen. So this is based off an Aztec legend that the Aztecs founded their city where this great eagle was perched on a cactus and holding a snake in its mouth. And we can see that same Aztec legend immortalized in the flag of modern-day Mexico. Here we have a map of the capital city, Tenochtitlan, and we see it here. It's an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. And all these lines here, these black lines, represent bridges that would connect mainland Mexico to this island city. Here we can see an artist's rendition of the farming that was done by the Aztecs. And these plots of land here were known as chinampas. The Aztecs built these floating platforms all around the capital of Tenochtitlan in order to farm upon. So this was an ingenious way of not using up valuable land of the capital city for farming. They could farm outside the city in the lake itself. In addition, they were a warrior people, so they would control and conquer neighboring tribes, take tribute in the form of wealth and human slaves. Like most other cultures, religion is at the center of Aztec life. What makes them different is that they performed human sacrifices to a greater degree than any other people of the Americas. The pyramid, therefore, was not only a place for religious worship, but also religious sacrifice to the gods. The picture there is self-explanatory. The Inca are the third and final group that we'll talk about. Keep in mind that there are other peoples of the Americas that come before and after, but we're focusing on these three because they were the most directly impacted by that initial encounter by the Europeans in 1492. So the Incas adapted to life in South America along the Andes Mountains here. So the Incan Empire, the emperor was seen as a god, a living deity. There was a highly organized government, and that highly organized government was unified through a single language and also this road system. You could see on the map here that this intricate system of roads connected north and south, sometimes in a treacherous way like this, but there were people whose occupation it was to run and deliver messages from the north to the south. It was said that these runners can get a message all the way from the north to the south in a matter of a couple days. Also, the Inca were an advanced people because of their record keeping. These items here are known as quipu. It was a system of knots that was used for record keeping. So each little knot represented a number, and you can keep detailed records. The Inca are also known for the amazing historical site of Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu, known as the City of the Clouds. Machu Picchu was difficult to attack because of its geography, being way up in the mountains. But it was a mountain city, palaces, temples, a bustling city. Here we can see what's left of that city. The timber roofs have all decayed, but the structures still remain. They also did terrace farming. So they cut these terraces, these platforms, into the mountain. If you plant on the side of a mountain and it rains, it'll wash all your crops away. Terrace farming was an elegant solution to farming on a mountainside. In addition, there were no large animals. So there's no horses or large cattle that were domesticated by the Incas. So they had to rely on the llama as basically the only form of pack animal that they had. That brings us to our aim as, were the Europeans great discoverers or great conquerors of the New World? We hear more and more about people making an argument for the removal of Columbus Day or the renaming of Columbus Day into Indigenous Peoples Day. So let's look at the European conquerors and also specifically Columbus and understand his legacy. According to the author Charles C. Mann, he says, no other person changed the face of the earth as radically as Columbus did. Columbus's crossing of the Atlantic marked the start of a new age, not only for the Americas, but also for Europe, Asia, and Africa. I want you to keep that statement in mind as we move forward. We need to dispel a few myths about Columbus first. The first one is that he discovered America. So Columbus never discovered America per se. He never steps foot in what we call the United States. His voyages took him to the island of Hispaniola, which contains Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So he landed in the Caribbean. He never set foot on the mainland. His calculations were incorrect. That's partially true, but people give Columbus a lot of flack, I should say, for being way off course, not knowing anything about where he was. But when we look at this map here, this was what many people in the age of Columbus thought the world looked like. So we can see here is Europe. We're looking down from the North Pole here. So here's Europe. If we wrap around, we go to Asia here. And they didn't know that there was anything here. So if you looked on this construction of what the world looked like, it looks like you just have to make a small jump, 1/7 of the Earth's diameter, to go from Europe to Asia. Here is Japan. Cathay was the European name for China at that time. So it seemed like you can just sort of sail around, no big deal. There were many maps that suggested that the Earth was this size, so Columbus just went with those calculations. It's also a myth that he discovered the Earth was round by sailing west. Most people knew that the Earth was round already. The ancient Greeks knew. The Egyptians had a pretty good idea that the Earth was round. Anyone who was educated knew that the Earth was round, so Columbus wasn't on a suicide mission. This map also sort of proves that Columbus wasn't as lost as many people made him out to be. He landed in Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic in Haiti, right here, and he thought that he had landed in India. Well, if we travel straight across from this island, straight across that same line of latitude, we can see that here's India. If I took some scissors and cut this section of the map out and then refolded it so that, I made a cone with this edge of Africa and wrapped it around to this side of Asia, he would have landed exactly where he thought he was landing. The problem was the initial calculations were incorrect. So without knowing that the initial calculations were incorrect, he naturally thought he had landed in India. Moving on. Columbus also made voyages based on the best information or the available information at the time. So here is another map that was popular at the time of Columbus, and we could see here is Spain, Africa just below it, and then here's Japan. And then again, Cathay represents China. So not a very large span here from one side to the other. And they had thought that this would be very navigable. So Columbus is going on some of the information that's available in his day. Lastly, Columbus made 4 voyages, not just one. Many people think 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but that wasn't the last. Columbus's 4th voyage was in 1502, 10 years later. So he had made a number of voyages, not just the one. I'm going to leave this entry up. Pause the video, read it for yourself, see what Columbus has to say about the native people. Next, we'll look at Bartolomé de las Casas, who was a monk who was writing about what happened to the people of the New World after the Spanish arrived. Pause the video, read this over. So now, having read these two things, we have to come to a conclusion. Was Columbus evil, or was he an important figure despite his faults? An interesting thing to notice is that when we look at De las Casas, he says that the Spaniards had behaved in no other way during the past 40 years. They had behaved like wild beasts or wolves or lions. Well, if we subtract 40 years from when he wrote his brief account, he's talking about after Columbus. He's talking about the people who came after him. So De las Casas had some respect for Columbus, and it seems as though he blamed the conquistadors that followed Columbus for the decimation of the Indians. Also, there is something to take into account that no one had accounted for smallpox. So the Indians may have died from smallpox, regardless of who had discovered the New World. Before 1492, there were no tomatoes in Italy, pineapples in Hawaii, potatoes in Ireland. What this is called is Columbian exchange. So this is the widespread exchange of animals, plants, people, diseases, technology, and all these things. Think about the pros and the cons. For the first time, the world is united and connected, and we've never gone back. If not Columbus, it would have been someone else. Did Columbus bring back indigenous people against their will? Yes, he did. Did he promise the king and queen of Spain that they could convert the Indians? Yes, he did. Let's discuss this in our Google Classroom. Was Columbus a hero or a villain?